after being jilted, my simple-minded younger sister slammed her head against a stone pillar, but I knew that someone from another world would come to live on in her place. She would become the heroine of this place, stunning everyone and gaining fame throughout the land. As for me, I would face the loss of my beloved to her, the ruin of my reputation, and ultimately become a hideous, wretched figure meeting a disgraceful end. She is the triumphant protagonist of an old-school time travel novel. While I am the venomous female supporting character, but I refused this time. I wiped the blood from her brow, shielded her before me, and became the first warmth she felt in this foreign world. My third sister, Wen Shuyi, was the greatest beauty of the Dayan dynasty, yet she was a simpleton. Her mind like that of a child. She had been simple-minded for 16 years, yet she had a fiancé whom everyone envied, the sixth prince of His Majesty, the Prince of Yang. He was the most capable among all the princes, and his appearance matched his abilities. If one had to name the greatest regret of his life, it would probably be having such a foolish fiancé. He detested her so much that he indulged others in bullying and humiliating her. Meanwhile, he would hold his beloved in his arms from a high place, looking down on her with contempt, mocking her and treating her as a joke, while those around him joined in the relentless ridicule. However, my sister, whose mind is like that of a child, keeps talking about having a fiancé who will one day come riding a tall horse to marry her, but others always laugh at her, calling it a foolish fantasy. The Prince of Yang did indeed come to our door, but not to marry her, rather, to break off the engagement. When he arrived, he brought along the idle nobles of the capital to witness this grand annulment, and also brought his beloved, Liu Shuran, the daughter of the Minister of Rites. He sought to use this public dissolution of the engagement to wash away his shame, sever all ties with Wen Shuyi cleanly, and thereby prove his devotion to Liu Shuran in her past life. He had haughtily tossed the annulment letter and engagement token onto the ground, looking at Wen Shuyi with utter disdain, his words cutting and cruel. "Just a fool. And you dare to covet the position of princess. From today onward, after this annulment, we are done with each other." As his words fell, the surrounding crowd murmured among themselves, their faces full of mockery. They pointed at Wen Shuyi openly, sneering, "No, the prince will come to marry me." Her beautiful face was filled with confusion and helplessness. Liu Shuran frowned slightly and scolded sharply, "He will never marry you. A fool standing between us is nothing but an eyesore. It would be better if you were dead." But my third sister, whose mind remained that of a child, seemed to understand her words and suddenly slammed her head against a stone. In an instant, blood gushed out. Their blatant cruelty was nothing more than bullying a helpless simpleton who had no one to rely on. For many years, her father had despised her, resenting her for tarnishing the family's reputation and making it impossible for him to hold his head high in the court and among the public. The servants and maids even bullied her behind his back. She was the daughter of concubine Lu in the mansion. During the autumn hunt that year, assassins stormed the hunting grounds, and concubine Lu died, saving Ying Guifei, the mother of the Prince of Yang. Grateful for the life-saving favor, Ying Guifei took special care of her. Thus the marriage contract was arranged at that time, when Shuyi was still in swaddling clothes. Unexpectedly, as she grew older, her intellect did not develop accordingly. These great families often cannot tolerate such scandals. If not for this marriage, she might have been sent to a rural estate and left to fend for herself. But she was the betrothed of the Prince of Yang, even if she were a simpleton. Even if the court and the public were abuzz with criticism, even if her father harbored disgust and hatred in his heart, he still had to keep her in the mansion. And as I looked at the mess before me, at the scene identical to my past life, my heart trembled. In the end, I had returned too late. By the time I regained my senses, such a tragedy had already unfolded, and I was powerless to stop it. I could only rush forward hastily, take out a handkerchief, and wipe away the bloodstains at the corner of her forehead. At that moment, she miraculously opened her eyes, and the brilliance that flickered in her gaze for just an instant was by no means that of a simpleton. She warily grabbed my wrist, but sensing no ill intent from me, she let go, her demeanor shifting back to a dull, foolish expression. She was pretending she had finally arrived, the heroine of this world. But I, Wen Shuyang, only wanted to change my own fate too. I straightened my back and shielded her in front of me, blocking the varied gazes of the crowd. Neither servile nor arrogant, I addressed the Prince of Yang. Your Highness, is your conduct today meant to deliberately humiliate the Wen family? The Prince of Yang lifted his gaze slightly, a hint of surprise in his eyes. It seemed everyone was astonished that I would stand up for Wen Shuyi amid the astonished gazes of the crowd. I spoke up again. Your Highness, Prince Yang, what you have done today not only humiliates the Wen family but also disgraces the royal family. First, back then, concubine Lu risked her life to save consort Ying, who, out of gratitude, arranged this betrothal. By breaking off the engagement today, you are betraying trust and righteousness, placing consort Ying in an unjust position. Second, you came to our residence to call off the marriage without consulting my father first, which goes against proper etiquette. My father has served as an official for decades, yet you treat his daughter with such contempt. This will surely dishearten your subordinates. Third, my younger sister is innocent and pure-hearted like a child, yet you led the way in mocking, teasing, and ridiculing her. Such conduct is utterly unbecoming of a gentleman. When my father returns, I will faithfully recount today's events. Please take your leave, Your Highness. Steward, see the guest out. As my words fell, Prince Yang's face had already turned pale, and even Liu Shuran clenched her handkerchief, her eyes burning with anger. My remarks today had already slapped Prince Yang in the face, almost directly calling him a man who breaks his word and abandons righteousness. But I did not care. I helped Wen Shuyi to her feet, took her hand, and led her toward the back courtyard. The physician had already entered the residence and conducted a thorough examination for her. I sat not far away, leisurely sipping tea. Though I was helping her, there was no need to be overly warm, for I had always been a person of a cool and distant nature. The servants in the household whispered behind my back, all saying that I had risked offending the Prince of Yang to stand up for Wen Shuyi, which was truly a sign that my studies had addled my mind. That evening, even my grandmother summoned me for a scolding. She slammed the prayer beads onto the table, her eyes blazing with fury, then turned to accuse me, her voice cold. You have always acted with propriety and restraint, diligent and studious for years, earning yourself a reputation for talent and securing a place among the noble ladies of the capital. With such a fine name, the family naturally arranged a bright future for you. But how could you lose your senses today, to offend His Highness, the Prince of Yang, for the sake of a simpleton? Living in such a grand family comes with countless helplessness. But alas, it cannot be spoken. I bowed deeply and whispered, "Granddaughter knows her mistake." I submitted so meekly because I knew that arguing would be futile and would only invite harsher punishment. Her anger gradually subsided. She lowered her eyes and said in a deep voice, "The Prince of Yang is the most likely successor to the throne. The Wen family must never offend him for the sake of a fool. Go kneel in the ancestral hall for a night and learn your lesson well." The cold wind was biting as I knelt before those memorial tablets. The old women watching over me had already leaned against the pillars, drowsy with sleep. Yet my thoughts drifted to the future. Grandmother said the Prince of Yang was the most likely to inherit the throne. Unfortunately, he was not in this world. He is not the male lead, and when Shuyi's path to rising has only just begun. At next month's Four Kingdoms banquet, she will dazzle the entire audience and shed her reputation for being foolish, and that will also mark the beginning of my Wen Shuyen's path to decline. 3. The sky was barely light, and I could no longer stand, only managing to return to the courtyard with the help of a maid. Before long, Wen Shuyi arrived, but her eyes and expression still bore that foolish, dazed look. In a childish tone, she comforted me, even clumsily reaching out to rub my knees. I saw through the emotions hidden beneath her thick lashes, and I saw through her disguise. I had no intention of exposing her, so I simply ordered tea to be poured and pastries brought out. Urging her to eat more, she ate on her own, occasionally casting a probing and scrutinizing glance without meaning to. Just as they were sitting in silence, a maidservant entered to announce, "Miss, young Master Lin heard that you were being punished and rushed over to see you." Lin Xiaobai. She hadn't expected him to arrive so early. the matter of my punishment last night will surely be widely publicized, as it is the face and stepping stone the Wen family has given to the Prince of Yang." I looked up at Wen Shuyi, who was lowering her head to eat some pastries. Although her face was smeared with crumbs, it still couldn't hide her stunning beauty in the past. She was a simpleton, a beauty, yes, but she always made herself dirty and unkempt, so she wasn't as dazzling, but from now on, her radiance will naturally be hard to conceal. Even the Prince of Yang would probably have to say that a pearl had been cast into the dust, let alone others. Lin Xiaobai would certainly be no exception. I let out a soft sigh, then said, "If he comes, just say I've already retired for the night." The maids were taken aback, but one replied, "Miss, you and young Master Lin grew up together, and he has always been deeply devoted to you. To turn him away like this might cause him to overthink. Indeed, we had known each other since childhood, and he never hid his feelings. Anyone could see them clearly, and I, too, treated him differently from others. But after years of familiarity, one can grow weary. How could it compare to the fleeting glance and sudden flutter of the heart for someone new? Childhood sweethearts ultimately cannot withstand. Rather than harboring sorrow and resentment in the days to come, it is better to draw a clear line today. How he chooses to think is beyond my control." My voice was cold, but the finality in my words caused the maids' expressions to shift slightly as they turned to deliver the message. Yet when Shuyi pretended to be naive and looked at me, asking softly, "Big sister, do you dislike him?" Dislike? I shook my head. How could it be dislike? It was just that in the future, he would devote his deep affection to another, remaining unmarried for life, and I was destined to have no fate with him. After sending Lin Xiaobai away, my father returned to the mansion. He had been ordered to go to Jiangnan for over a month, yet upon returning to the mansion, he came straight to my courtyard. Upon entering, he saw Wen Shuyi eating pastries, his eyes unable to conceal disgust and disdain. Having served as an official for decades, his sole focus was on the prosperity and honor of the family. As for his children, he would grant a few more smiles if they were useful, but treat them coldly if they were not. I have already learned of the annulment. The Prince of Yang has indeed gone too far, but you had a more moderate way to handle it, yet you let the situation become so tense. Truly disappointing. As soon as he entered, he did not worry about the humiliation his daughters had suffered, but instead kept scolding them. Third sister is, after all, a member of the Wen family. If she is trampled upon to such an extent, how can I, as her daughter, stand by and do nothing? To bully her is to insult me as well." I stared straight at him. Perhaps this was the first time I had spoken to him in such a manner. Anger had already risen on his face. His hand lifted high but paused mid-air, never falling, before he turned and swept away with a flick of his sleeve. When Shuyi approached, without wiping the sticky pastry from her hands, she directly tugged at my fingers and nuzzled her head against my shoulder. I knew her mind was clear and bright. Those lowered eyes saw through the affairs of the world, and she possessed a heart as exquisite and perceptive as brocade. For on the emperor's birthday, envoys gathered, and His Majesty held a banquet for 4 nations at the Chaoyang Terrace. Qian Wang, who had always been reclusive, also appeared. He was the only prince of a different surname in the Dayan dynasty, with a hereditary title and fiefdom, and was exempt from bowing in the emperor's presence. The current Qian Wang, Mu Qinghong, was barely in his early 20s. This was only his second time in the capital since inheriting the title. Rumors outside described him as brutal in temperament but strikingly handsome. Though the court was full of nobles and distinguished families, his presence was impossible to ignore. He lounged in an intricately carved armchair, watching with a faint, enigmatic smile. I sat upright on the lower side, only glancing up at him for a moment before quickly looking away. As soon as he arrived, the atmosphere turned solemn, using the famed Qin Haiyu Qinghui as the prize. Whoever could play it would win the instrument. Haiyu Qinghui had not been seen for a long time, stirring the crowd present to eager anticipation. Envoys from several other states also wished to claim the treasure to seek favor upon their return. The emperor, naturally unwilling to lose face by showing the great Yin lacked talent, encouraged everyone present to give their best effort. The envoy of the Northern Moon Kingdom took the stage first, but unfortunately, not a single note was played from the zither. Drawing loud laughter from the crowd, the noble ladies took turns on stage, yet none could produce a sound from the instrument. Liu Shuran stepped onto the stage with an air of arrogance, but in the end, she could only slink off in disgrace before leaving. My grandmother repeatedly urged me to perform well at the banquet, but I just want to disappear in this farce, yet some people simply refused to let me go. Miss Wen is a renowned talented woman in the capital, and once studied under the world's greatest zither master. Why not give it a try? The speaker was none other than Liu Shuran, who raised an eyebrow slightly, as if waiting to see me make a fool of myself at that moment. The emperor also spoke up, urging me to give it a try. Helplessly, I could only step forward, yet I knew that even with my unparalleled skill in playing the qin, I could not play this one. This was a glory that belonged solely to Wen Shuyi, one that no one could take away. In my past life, I had once walked up to the high platform with full confidence, believing in my own mastery of the qin, convinced that there was no instrument in this world I could not tame, but in the end, I suffered a crushing defeat before the eyes of the crowd, and then, consumed by rage, I spat blood for many years afterward. That was my nightmare. I was jealous, resentful, and full of hatred, but this time, will it be any different? The body of the qin was inlaid with gemstones that glowed with a soft light, truly living up to its name. Moonlight on the sea. As my fingers brushed the strings, turbulent waves surged in my heart, yet, no matter how I plucked the strings, the qin remained utterly silent, just as it had back then. I really tried my best. How is this possible? Miss Wen is the direct disciple of the world's greatest zither master. How could this happen? They were all shocked as well. I prided myself on my exceptional zither skills, yet fate ultimately destined me to fail here. The jeers around me reached my ears. So this is the so-called talented lady of a prestigious family, with unparalleled zither artistry, more like a fraud deceiving the world. If you ask me, a reputation without substance is ultimately useless after all. These remarks pierced my heart like 1,000 knives. My father, who had always taken such pride in this, finally darkened his expression. The look in his eyes shifted from hope to disgust, and he said coldly, "Why are you still up there? Come down at once. Are you trying to make a spectacle of yourself?" I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and walked down slowly from the high platform with heavy steps. Amid the murmurs of discussion, one person stepped forward slowly, her voice ethereal and clear, announcing, "I'll do it." Under the astonished gaze of the crowd, Wen Shuyi stepped forward, moving with graceful steps, dignified and composed, no longer appearing foolish. Those people still looked down on her, sneering, a fool, not knowing her place. Does a fool even know how to play the zither? Ha ha ha. But I knew she could. This zither was her destined glory. She sat down gracefully, her fingers brushing the strings, and at last, the zither produced a sound of unparalleled beauty. As the tempo of her fingers quickened, the music poured forth, its lingering echoes reverberating for days on end. Even the initially aloof and arrogant Prince Qian was now holding his breath, completely immersed in the melody. I chuckled self-mockingly, realizing that even over a decade of hard practice on the zither had been useless. When the piece ended, everyone stared wide-eyed in shock and amazement. Even the envoy from the Northern Moon Kingdom said with a look of deep admiration, "I never imagined that the Dayan Empire, with its abundance of talent, would have someone of such extraordinary zither skill." Her fame spread throughout the realm at the Four Kingdoms banquet. Just as it had unfolded before, I lifted my gaze to Lin Xiaobai, and, sure enough, he was staring intently at the person on the stage. Perhaps, at this moment, everyone was looking at her, from the nobles to the ministers. All were the same. She wore a simple, elegant green dress, revealing her unparalleled beauty to the world. Even the Prince of Yang showed a hint of frustration in his eyes at this moment. She had become a dazzling pearl, yet not one that belonged to him. After the banquet ended, I sat in the pavilion, while not far away, everyone was discussing how the fool had awakened from his dream, displaying unparalleled zither skills that amazed everyone around. Tomorrow, these stories will become the hot topic of conversation in tea houses and taverns. Prince Yang passed by me and sneered, "That day you shielded her behind you, willing to offend me just to protect her. Today, she shines brilliantly, stunning everyone, and even you have become her stepping stone. Your good little sister really knows how to keep her talents hidden, he taunted me. Mocking my failure, I snapped back to reality, standing against the wind, and said in a deep voice, "No matter what happens between her and me, that is a matter between us sisters. It is not for your highness to sow discord. Do not stoop to being a petty person. Besides, this is all fate." He furrowed his brows, his face full of displeasure, and murmured, "Fate, yes, this is fate. It is destined that today she will shine brilliantly, and it is destined that the man she marries will not be you." My gaze was intense, my voice cold and clear. The Prince of Yang, struck to the core, flew into a rage out of humiliation and stormed off with a flick of his sleeve. 5. The palace banquet ended, when Shuyi returned to the mansion clutching the Haiyu Qinghui, but my father had the servants line up neatly at the gate to welcome her, escorting her inside in a grand procession. As for me, I slipped back to my courtyard alone through the back door. I fell into a deep sleep, and in my dreams, I was driven off the high platform before a crowd, my reputation utterly destroyed. I woke up, drenched in a cold sweat from the shock. Rumors were rife in the mansion, and even grandmother and father had clearly changed their attitudes toward Wen Shuyi, assigning her a new courtyard. The courtyard was exceptionally elegant, and many maids were dispatched to serve her. However, when Shuyi drove them all away and even mocked grandmother and father with cold sarcasm, now, no one in the mansion dares to underestimate her. In the days that followed, when Shuyi often left the mansion, sometimes she engaged in poetry duels at the tavern, and other times she taught arrogant young men a lesson in the streets, yet she always had remarkable luck, befriending only the most illustrious figures of the age. They admired her bold, uninhibited character and her casual, unceremonious attitude, and were willing to get to know her, help her, and become her closest friends. Most people said the tides in the manor were about to turn, and from then on, the third miss would be held in the highest regard. My young maid, indignant on my behalf, muttered, "Miss, you have not dared to slacken for a single moment over the years, also as not to fail the family's expectations. Could all that be erased by just one day of her efforts?" I was practicing calligraphy with a brush, and merely said calmly, "This is nothing. The Wen family is too small to keep a phoenix that spreads its wings and soars high. Her life is destined to be extraordinary." The young girl frowned, her face full of confusion. I only let out a low chuckle, then fixed my gaze on the characters beneath my brush. After many days of rest and recuperation, my heart had finally settled completely. At this time in my past life, I was tormented by nightmares and blinded by jealousy. I didn't want to be jealous, but at that time, I couldn't help it. I watched helplessly as everything I had painstakingly built over the years was effortlessly taken away by her. It seemed as if there was always a voice stirring up my malice, pushing me forward. Yet, after all the twists and turns, the past could not trap my future. Soon, it was her birthday. I prepared a gift and sent it ahead of time on the day of her birthday. No one mentioned it inside the mansion, but outside, guests gathered in droves, distinguished visitors arriving one after another to celebrate her special day. The nobility of those people and the vast influence behind them left even my father astonished, and all of these people came for Wen Shuyi, figures that even my father had failed to befriend. Even the Prince of Qian seemed to have sent someone to deliver gifts. I was not surprised by this, because he is the male protagonist of this world, the one who stands shoulder to shoulder with Wen Shuyi. But among the crowd, I noticed Lin Xiaobai's figure, his gaze fixed on Wen Shuyi, who had undergone a stunning transformation. For a moment, I was still dazed. We were once childhood friends, and there was a time when we understood each other's hearts. Later, he would personally deny everything between us and pursue the shining pearl in his eyes. In this life, I will not give him my deep affection, nor will I care about whom he loves. His feelings can be given to anyone he wishes. I turned around and went back to the small courtyard. 6. Lin Xiaobai caught up. He wasn't angry that I had avoided him that day. Instead, he asked if my knee was feeling any better. Though he chatted with me in a desultory manner, his topics always inadvertently drifted to Wen Shuyi. He was quite curious about Wen Shuyi's changes, as if trying to pry something out of me. I do not wish to say much. As I saw him off, I happened to overhear the maidservants in the manor gossiping behind his back. They were saying that he and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts, and that he would likely come to propose to me soon. Just these words made his expression change dramatically. When we reached a quiet place, he said to me with a serious face, "Shu Yang, the Lin and Wen families have been close for generations. We've known each other since we were children, and my care for you is nothing more than brotherly affection. You understand, don't you?" His eyes were fixed on me, his tone very earnest, as if afraid I might say something I shouldn't. In the past, an elder once said something similar, but back then he had only looked at me with a smile, even nodding along. Now, however, a mere remark behind his back has already thrown him into utter disarray. Was he afraid that when Shuyi might misunderstand? I found it laughable inside. Fixing my eyes on his, I said seriously, "Cousin, you are overthinking things. I have no romantic feelings for you whatsoever, so do not flatter yourself. If you fear others might misunderstand, then you need not see me again. Spare me your superfluous concern. I do not care for it." A flash of astonishment crossed his face, as if he could not believe those words had come from my lips. Perhaps my cold words stung him, for when I turned to leave, he was still standing there, stunned and not yet recovered. In this life, he at least had the sense to speak to me in private. In the previous life, he had washed his hands of all responsibility in full view of everyone, and after saying so, he even glanced cautiously at Wen Shuyi. After saying all this today, I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Now, who does he think he is? Several months had passed, and Wen Shuyi had stolen the spotlight in every corner of the capital, yet I kept a low profile, rarely leaving my residence, until the Empress Dowager summoned me to the palace, only to find His Majesty's figure in Shokong Palace. It was not only the Empress Dowager who wished to see me today, but also His Majesty. He intends to arrange a marriage for Prince Qian, favoring me to marry into the Qian prince's mansion, hoping I will become its mistress. My expression unchanged, I bowed my head and replied, "I shall obey your Majesty's decree." Upon returning to the mansion, my father ordered me to see him. Upon learning of His Majesty's words, he was overjoyed. At present, the position of Princess of Qian is noble and illustrious, a title many daughters of prestigious families covet but cannot attain. He never expected His Majesty to make such an arrangement. If this marriage comes to pass, the Wen family's influence will surely surpass its former glory. His Majesty believed he had left no stone unturned, but he underestimated Prince Qian's arrogance and pride, and even more so, his boldness and resolve. If I am not mistaken, he will refuse and instead choose Wen Shuyi, for he once said that his princess must be someone he selects himself. His Majesty had laid countless plans, and my father was filled with joy. Unfortunately, they are destined to be disappointed. 3 days later, an imperial decree was issued, granting a marriage to Wen Shuyi. Prince Qian accompanied the proclamation, bestowing upon her the honor of publicly displaying his favor. He personally stated that the Haiyu Qinghui was a treasured heirloom left by the ancestors of the Prince Qian's mansion. Possessing spiritual awareness and recognizing its master, the one it chose would be the mistress of the Prince Qian's mansion. This was also the reason why only Wen Shuyi could play that zither that day. The zither had already acknowledged its master. Words of congratulations were endless, with everyone marveling that after being rejected by Prince Yang, Wen Shuyi could still marry into the Prince Qian's mansion and gain the prince's favor. The Prince of Yang seemed so furious that he was about to grind his teeth to dust. I watched as Prince Qian stood side by side with Wen Shuyi, like a perfect pair. Now, her eyes sparkled with intelligence and liveliness, no longer the dull and dazed look of the past. This was what I wanted to see, but it was far from enough. 7. The woman His Majesty sought must not only be worthy of the position of princess consort but also serve as his best pawn and eyes and ears. That day, when he summoned me to the palace, it was not to ask for my consent but to make me understand my place, to become a dutiful and valuable pawn, reporting on the movements of Prince Qian's estate. In my past life, I was indeed ordered by imperial decree to marry into the Prince Qian's mansion, but as a secondary consort. While the primary consort was Wen Shuyi, the emperor chose me because he believed I was docile, loyal, and easy to control, but Prince Qian refused and selected Wen Shuyi instead. Wen Shuyi, however, was unruly and not the most useful pawn in the emperor's eyes, so he issued another imperial decree, making me the secondary consort. I dared not defy imperial authority, nor could I go against my father's will. I had no choice but to comply, yet I lacked Wen Shuyi's fortune, and could only let myself sink deeper into the mire. By now, the imperial court no longer trusts the Prince of Qian's mansion. The land of Qian is wealthy enough to rival a nation, yet it grows increasingly estranged from the royal family. Moreover, the current Prince of Qian acts with far more assertiveness than any of his predecessors. The majesty of the imperial house is no longer enough to suppress them. That night, I went to see the Grand Princess Yuanzhao. She poured me a cup of tea, every movement graceful and composed, yet her eyes betrayed a glint of ambition. I thought the one who laid out the entire political landscape of the realm and predicted the court's future direction in the letter would be a reclusive mastermind. To think it would be the eldest Miss Wen. Disappointed, Your Highness? I asked with a smile. Unexpectedly, she raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest flashing in her eyes, before saying, No, I actually find it more intriguing. What is it you want me to help you with? I didn't want to beat around the bush with her and said directly, His Majesty intends for me to marry into the Qian prince's mansion and become his most convenient pawn, although, due to the Qian prince's actions, the betrothed principal wife has now become Wen Shuyi. His Majesty has not given up on his plan. Within 10 days, he will issue an edict making me a secondary consort. Your Highness must have a way to stop this decree. A flicker of surprise flashed in her eyes. Then she probed, within 10 days. If your prediction proves accurate this time, I will assist you. This was, I suppose, her first test for me. 5 days later, the imperial decree did indeed come down, but it was not I who was granted the title of secondary consort. The eldest princess said I had guessed correctly, but she could only advise on changing the chosen person, not prevent the emperor from acting. When she came to see me again, there was noticeably more admiration in her eyes. I thought Wen Shuyi's widespread fame and marriage into the prince's mansion had dampened your spirit, but it seems your ambitions lie elsewhere. There was a hint of probing in her voice. I lifted my brows slightly, my gaze fixed on a certain point, and then said, Having gone through life and death, one naturally gains some growth. The arts of qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting only bring fleeting fame, and marrying into a noble family ultimately means relying on others. None of these are what I desire. Then what do you desire? Yuan Zhao raised his eyes slightly and asked in a deep voice, I wish for a future where the winds and clouds converge, and the princess and I discuss state affairs as sovereign and minister. The day the princess ascends the throne will be the day I rise to the highest office. Fleeting fame and love easily dissipate, but power and authority remain eternal. Even someone as composed as her could not hide a flicker of shock at this moment, the emotions on her face lingering for a long time. Clearly, my words had exceeded her expectations. I know she has ambition and the capability to match. In her past life, she was just one move short. This time, I will help her. After a long while, she said with a hint of sarcasm, the entire court and the common folk all favor the Prince of Yang. Who would believe that a woman could achieve great things? Yet as she spoke these words, it was not out of self-pity, but rather with a faint trace of pride. Then let us prove it to them, I said. My tone filled with unwavering resolve. A flicker of emotion passed through her eyes, and then she gazed back with burning determination and commanding presence. Very well, if that day comes. You and I shall surely create a tale of a worthy sovereign and a loyal minister. 8. When Shuyi's wedding day was approaching, and this time it was jointly organized by the Ministry of Rites and the Imperial Palace, making it exceptionally grand. Yet on the eve of the wedding, she came to see me. She brought a fine jug of wine, filled my cup, and spoke with boundless melancholy. Soon after I regain my senses, I will be married far away to the land of Qian. My heart is truly uneasy, yet I have no one to confide in, so I have come to trouble my elder sister. The Prince of Qian is a dragon among men, and the land of Qian is as wealthy as a nation. Rest assured, little sister." It seemed she was thinking of Prince Qian, her brows slightly furrowed as she bit her lower lip and said, "But this time, accompanying me into the Prince Qian's mansion is also a secondary consort." These two words struck my heartstrings lightly, leaving me momentarily stunned, my heart pausing slightly. It seemed to remind me of the days I struggled bitterly in the Prince Qian's mansion in my past life. It was like a quagmire that drained my energy, offering no hope, and I gradually lost myself within it. A long gust of wind blew by, bringing me a moment of clarity. I felt a sudden relief, realizing that this time I would take a different path. I would sever all ties with them, withdraw completely from their story, and no longer serve as the pitiful stepping stone in their tale of love. The lifelong partnership of one heart and one soul that you long for, Prince Qian will fulfill for you. From now on, you will receive all of Prince Qian's love and trust. I calmly stated everything. While shock and confusion flickered across her face, I filled my cup with wine and then toasted her. "Sister, your fate in this life is extraordinary. Blessed by heaven, most of what you seek in life will come true, but remember to act with moderation, always harbor kindness, and never rely on your fortune to act recklessly or without restraint." These words of mine were both a warning and a reminder. I hoped she would not lose her reverence for heaven's will and thus disregard all else in the world. She nodded hastily, but a flicker of something unusual appeared in her eyes, quickly concealed. She was afraid that I would discover she was a person from another world, afraid that I would find out that the soul beneath this body had long been replaced. I had no intention of exposing her. Her arrival in this world was something I was powerless to prevent. Having been reborn, I only want to change my own fate. I watched her retreating figure, holding back one unspoken thought, the hope that I would never see her again in this lifetime. That way, we could each find our own peace. On the day of her wedding, I did not appear at the mansion. Instead, I stood with Princess Yuan Zhao atop a tea house, watching the 10-mile-long street carpeted in brocade red. This grand wedding was a spectacle that captured the world's attention. Once, I was a part of the scene, anxious and lost. Now, I am an outsider, calm and composed. The same wedding, yet a different state of mind. At the end of the long street, Lin Xiaobai stood alone in place. The deep affection he thought he harbored had no chance to be expressed. It is said that he has already petitioned His Majesty, requesting to be transferred far away to Qingju for experience and training. The land of Qingju is close to Qian. Perhaps he wanted to find a place near her to silently watch over her. Having seen the excitement, it's time for us to attend to our own matters. Yuan Zhao spoke slowly as he set it down. Now, to me, this is merely a spectacle, seen and easily forgotten. As for the grudges and entanglements within the Prince Qian's mansion, they no longer have anything to do with me, for I am destined for a broader world. I took a list and a small booklet from my sleeve and handed them to her. She opened them, looked at me in disbelief, then abruptly closed them, her fingers tightly gripping the booklet. Some of these people, on the surface, have absolutely no connection to the Prince of Yang. Even I never noticed them. How did you manage to uncover the links behind them? 9. In my past life, I was a pawn, struggling to survive amidst the power struggle between the Emperor and Prince Qian, yet it also allowed me to gain insight into the political landscape of the court. If I were to say that I am skilled in the art of divination and can foresee future events, would your Highness believe me? I said with a light laugh, my tone deliberately ambiguous, teasing her. But she lowered her gaze for a moment, then looked up with a serious expression and said, "I believe you." Her brief words stirred a wave of emotion within me. Then, dropping my playful demeanor, I replied earnestly, "I will not let your Highness's trust be in vain. This list not only records the mutual entanglements of Prince Yang's faction but also documents their illicit dealings." She weighed the list in her hands repeatedly, then said solemnly, "What you hold in your hands is as heavy as 1,000 pounds. If you were to give it to any other prince, they would readily agree to your demands. But by choosing me, this path will be far more difficult. Why would you do this?" I stood with my head bowed, clasping my hands in a respectful salute. "Because your Highness is worthy. In my past life, when the enemy army was at the city gates, she was the one who held the line until the very end, choosing death over surrender. None of the other princes possessed such courage. She raised her right hand slightly, helping me up. A tacit understanding was reached between us, requiring no words. If this list falls into the hands of the fourth prince, it might be put to its greatest use. Her thoughts aligned perfectly with mine, and I murmured softly, when the snipe and the clam grapple, it is the fisherman who profits. In her past life, she too was one who kept a low profile. At first, no one regarded a princess as a threat, but when she truly revealed her strength and ambition, it made all those people wary. Now, the only one who can openly rival the Prince of Yang is the fourth prince. The others are not yet a force to be reckoned with. As for the conflict between the Prince of Yang and the fourth prince, we only need to watch from the sidelines and, at the right moment, add fuel to the fire. This list is the perfect opportunity if the fourth prince makes good use of this list. At worst, it will leave the Prince of Yang with no chance to recover. At best, it will severely weaken him. When Shuyi's grand, world-famous wedding finally came to an end, and I returned to my residence over the past 6 months, my father has grown increasingly dissatisfied with me. When I returned, I happened to catch sight of his gloomy expression. I had high hopes for this marriage, but I never expected you to be so useless. Go reflect behind closed doors, he left with a flick of his sleeve. Perhaps it was when Shuyi's constant defiance and unruliness that made him even more eager for this marriage to be bestowed upon me. After all, in his eyes, I am the docile and easily controlled one. In the days that followed, I heeded his words, reflecting on my mistakes behind closed doors, spending each day reading and copying books in my room with a calm heart. The surroundings grew quiet as well. Time passed in a blur. News often came back from Qian, telling of how the prince cherished and loved his consort, their affectionate tales spreading far and wide. For her, he set aside rules. For her, he banished his retainers. For her, he sought rare treasures. When the emperor bestows a marriage, no matter who marries into the Prince of Qian's residence, it will arouse the prince's suspicion and distrust. Yet she is fortunate enough to have such luck, winning his true heart and affection. But all of this has nothing to do with me anymore. What I care about more is the movements in the imperial court. 10 Yuan Zhao had that list passed through various hands into the hands of the fourth prince. Believing it to be a godsend, the fourth prince relentlessly attacked the Prince of Yang's faction, leaving them struggling to cope. In just half a year, the Vice Minister of War was thrown into prison for embezzling military funds and substituting inferior goods for quality ones. The Minister of Revenue was dismissed for being implicated in an old case and framing loyal officials, and the Grand Chancellor was forced to retire and return to his hometown. Even the Prince of Yang himself fell under the Emperor's suspicion, accused of forming a faction for personal gain, and subsequently had the military authority of the Feiyu Guard stripped from him. The Prince of Yang's faction was thus severely weakened, while the fourth prince rose to prominence and was granted the title of Prince of Yu. Among the princes, the first to be infeft as a prince was the Prince of Yang, who had once been the most favored by the emperor and the most promising candidate in the eyes of the court and the public. But now, the fourth prince has been granted a princedom and stands as an equal rival to him, even subtly gaining the upper hand. The situation in the court has since undergone a sudden shift. As for Yuan Zhao, she is far from merely sitting back and watching the tigers fight. In her past life, her supporters included not only the 4 great clans but also regional governors and wealthy merchants from various prefectures. Though those behind her were not in the court, they could still influence the overall direction of the imperial government. She was the eldest daughter of the emperor and the late empress, personally tutored by the emperor from a young age, immersed in his teachings, while the later princes were instructed by great Confucian scholars in the ways of Confucius and Mencius. She instead learned the art of imperial rule, skilled in manipulating people and stabilizing the court. The world only praised her intelligence, yet failed to see her ambition when she came to visit me. Before entering the mansion, my father was greatly astonished. She said to my father that she recently needed a companion, and having heard of my reputation for talent, she invited me to reside in the princess's mansion and live with her. Father naturally wouldn't refuse. And I followed Yuan Zhao into her splendid carriage. She arrived today in full regalia, exuding the dignified bearing befitting a royal princess. Has Prince Yu made any moves lately? Yuan Zhao let out a light scoff. He came to me the other day, promising me future glory and wealth, and asked for my help. I let out a soft sigh. This really was the wrong person to ask. Father sent people to Qian to investigate not long ago. It seems he doesn't quite trust the Prince of Qian. As Yuan Zhao's words fell, my heart tightened slightly. It seemed that my connection with Wen Shuyi could not be completely avoided after all. If there is no way to avoid it, then I have no choice but to fight to the death. Has the messenger sent by His Majesty returned with news? I asked in a low voice. The message returned said there was nothing unusual. Yuan Zhao's fingers traced the jade pendant, but his eyes shifted, his thoughts inscrutable. Does the princess believe it? She shook her head, as if she had already made up her mind. The Qian prince's mansion has been passed down to this day, ruling one city, governing 3 prefectures, with wealth rivaling that of a nation and boundless ambition. The current prince of Qian, Mu Qinghong, is no one who would willingly remain subordinate to others. Your Highness's ultimate opponent may not be Prince Yu or Prince Yang, but the Prince of Qian, I said slowly. A battle between them was inevitable. Upon hearing this, she showed no fear. When heroes emerge and times are turbulent, it is both a challenge and an opportunity. If I lose, I will simply die and return to nothing. If I succeed, my name will be etched in history. The Prince of Qian's mansion was growing increasingly powerful, and his rebellious intentions were already blatantly obvious. Now, he was merely biding his time. The Dayan dynasty, weathered by a century of storms, had already shown signs of decline. If she could one day stabilize the realm and usher in a new era, she would be a sovereign of restoration, destined to leave her name in history. Even if conflict arises in the future, the Prince of Qian will be nothing but a traitor and rebel, with no righteous cause to rally behind. But the princess, as the rightful heir of the royal bloodline, shall raise an army to suppress him and win the people's hearts. I spoke with lowered eyes, my hand subtly clenching within my sleeve. In this life, I hope she can win. 11. I have taken up long-term residence in the princess mansion, serving as the princess's nominal study companion in the court. Prince Yu and Prince Yang are as irreconcilable as fire and water. Although Prince Yang has suffered a severe blow, he still has a backup plan. Prince Yu, despite gaining the upper hand, has provoked Prince Yang's frenzied retaliation. Prince Yu has been too ostentatious, leading to accusations that he is plotting for the highest position and harboring rebellious intentions. Moreover, his own retainers turned against him at a critical moment, stepping forward to testify. And this is the grand gift I have given him. Prince Yu's glory came swiftly and faded just as quickly. He was demoted to commoner status and exiled to Qianju. Prince Yang seemed to have regained his former pride and splendor. However, the struggle against Prince Yu had drained most of his strength, leaving him at the end of his tether. During a moment of leisure, Yuan Zhao played a game of chess with me. In just a few short years, the political landscape had changed dramatically, catching even her by surprise. You always seem to see the opportunity first, then strike them with a fatal blow. Prince Yu has already fallen, and now only Prince Yang remains. Yuan Zhao placed a chess piece, his voice calm and unhurried. The emperor is ill, yet his suspicion of the Qian prince's mansion grows ever deeper. This time, he appointed Prince Yang as the imperial envoy, bearing the dragon spring sword to inspect the realm on his behalf. In truth, it is to investigate whether the Qian prince's mansion harbors any rebellious intentions, and only after this mission will it be decided whether Prince Yang is worthy of becoming your ultimate opponent. I followed with a move. Unhurriedly, Yuan Zhao's expression subtly tightened, as if he grasped the deeper meaning behind my words. The Yang king's arrival in Qian was a grand and imposing affair. The king of Qian, in turn, hosted a banquet in his honor and escorted him on tours around the region. The Yang king carried himself with arrogance, often overbearing, yet the king of Qian remained courteous and yielded at every turn. I already sensed that this journey would bode ill for the Yang king. The king of Qian was never one to back down, yet now he adopted a submissive posture. This could only mean he was orchestrating a far greater scheme, Although the Prince of Yang's trip was for official business, he also had personal motives. His personal motive revolved around Wen Shuyi. After the annulment of their engagement, she underwent a stunning transformation and married the Prince of Qian instead. Their loving story became a legend across the land, and everyone said he had been blind and regretted it deeply. His resentment and hatred grew day by day, gradually becoming an obsession. He harbored an almost insane fixation on Wen Shuyi next. There will be a good show to watch. The Prince of Yang had held a high position for many years and was overly arrogant, but the Prince of Qian was a decisive and ruthless man. The Prince of Yang had underestimated him. A few days later, a piece of news shocked the world, causing an uproar in the dead of night. The Prince of Yang sneaked into the rear courtyard of the Prince of Qian's mansion, attempting to assault the princess, and was slain by the Prince of Qian's sword. When the news reached me, I couldn't help but reflect. The Prince of Qian's mansion had long been training troops, and the time was ripe. All that was needed was a justifiable reason to raise an army in rebellion. I never expected the Prince of Yang to become that excuse. The imperial family, lacking virtue, had insulted the princess, and the Prince of Qian, enraged, rose in revolt. This was indeed the perfect pretext for war, but based on my understanding of Wen Shuyi and Mu Qinghong, this should be a trap they set together, luring someone in. The world is bound to fall into chaos. Now that the emperor is gravely ill, the court is leaderless, with no one to take charge of the overall situation. Just as anxiety grips everyone, the emperor issues a decree, ordering Princess Yuanzhao to oversee state affairs and act as regent, with all government matters to be decided by her. She finally stepped before the eyes of the crowd, entrusted with a mission in a time of crisis, and I followed her once again into the public eye. The rebellion had already erupted. The urgent priority was to dispatch troops to suppress it. Yuan Zhao ordered General Xu to take command and lead the army to intercept the rebel forces, but beyond that, I offered her another strategy, commanding General Yunhui to lead a separate contingent eastward, taking the route through Blue City, and I also requested to accompany him when Shuyi was no longer the naive girl she once was, nor was she the docile woman of this era. The Prince of Qian's path to contention also bore her mark. Now, I will never sit idly by and wait for death. When the army reached Blue City, they stationed there and advanced no further. It is enough to hold this position. Blue City is not a place of strategic military importance. General Yunhui did not understand why I insisted on defending it, but he said that since the princess trusted me, he would trust me as well. This loyalty is truly commendable. But 10 days later, war erupted across the land. General Xu launched a frontal assault against Prince Qian's forces, engaging them in battle at the same time. Taking advantage of Dayan's internal turmoil, the Northern Moon Kingdom raised an army and invaded, aiming to seize 3 border cities. If successful, Prince Qian's city would be in grave danger. Yet now, the one left to guard Qian was Wen Shuyi. Mu Qinghong trusted her, so he granted her military command, placing the heavy responsibility of defending the rear on her shoulders, and she now stood locked in a stalemate with the Northern Moon Kingdom's army at the border city of Mo. A torrential downpour fell from the sky, relentless for days on end, truly eerie. Now, as the Prince of Qian's army and the Xu family's army are locked in fierce battle in Luocheng, I said the time had come. General Yunhui looked at me with utter confusion and asked, "Miss Wen, did you foresee this intense battle today, and thus lie in wait here early?" "Yes, I knew this fierce battle would happen, so I waited in Luocheng. In my past life, Luocheng fell, and General Xu died in battle, that allowed the Prince of Qian's army to advance unimpeded, sweeping through like a hot knife through butter. Now, we lie in wait in Lancheng, conserving our strength. Lancheng is only half a day's journey from Luocheng. The Xu family's army will confront the enemy head-on, while General Yunhui can set out from Lancheng and strike the Prince of Qian's army from the flank. Caught in a pincer attack, the Prince of Qian's army will inevitably be unable to attend to one without losing the other, and will no longer be an unbreakable force. Perhaps it was divine intervention, for a torrential downpour struck and continued for days on end. After their long march, King Qian's forces were surely struggling for reinforcements. The Cloud Banner general had already led his troops to Luocheng, laying siege to King Qian's army. Meanwhile, I remained in Lancheng with a contingent of soldiers, guarding the city's people and keeping them safe from harm. Should the Battle of Luocheng end as it did in the previous life, with General Shu killed in action, then Lancheng would also fall, and I would stand or fall with Lancheng. 12 A few days passed in a daze, when suddenly the heavens showed an anomaly in the city of Blue. I witnessed startling thunderbolts in broad daylight, dozens in succession. In an instant, dark clouds surged from all directions, rolling across the sky. The heavens turned gloomy in a flash, as if black clouds were pressing down upon the city. Streaks of lightning pierced through the clouds, striking down through the air, yet landing far away, barely visible. The next day, intelligence arrived. The border city of Ink had fallen several days earlier, and the Princess of Qian had abandoned the city and fled. Meanwhile, the ironclad troops of the Northern Moon Kingdom breached the city gates, slaughtering the entire populace, blood washing through the streets. The old, the weak, women, and children, none were spared. Looking at the handwriting on the paper, my heart trembled, and a chill spread from the depths of my heart. When Shuyi had actually abandoned the entire city's people and fled, even if such a person were to seize the world, would they truly treat its people well? Had I overestimated the limits of her kindness, or had her past smooth sailing left her without any reverence, allowing her to act recklessly? She had cast aside the lives of the entire city's people as if they were nothing but dust. In the midst of my anger and shock, someone arrived in a disheveled state, their blue robe stained with dust, their hair in disarray, clearly unkempt for days, with faint stubble visible at the corners of their mouth. I never imagined that when I saw Lin Xiaobai again, he would be in such a disheveled and down-and-out state. The moment he saw me, his eyes instantly reddened, faintly glistening with tears, as if 1,000 words were gathering at the tip of his tongue. I had a very long dream. In the dream, we grew up together as childhood sweethearts and pledged our lives to each other. But later, it was as if I had been bewitched, falling in love with your younger sister, hurting you deeply until we became strangers. In the end, I guarded her for a lifetime, while you married another. As for us, the world only has a few words of gossip saying you were jealous of your sister, ruthless and cruel, and eventually died in the deep palace, saying I was devoted to her, my love so deep it was unfathomable, never marrying in my life. We were both nothing but mere foils in this grand drama. Was this really just a dream, or was it our past life? As his voice faded, tears streamed down his face, and he choked up, unable to speak. I remained silent for a long time. Those long-buried memories suddenly awakened, and I didn't know what to say. Though I didn't know exactly what had happened to him, it seemed he also had memories of a past life. At this point, dwelling on whether it was a dream or a past life memory no longer held much meaning. I said in a low voice, "It was probably just a dream. Perhaps it was a dream, but I have lived through 2 lifetimes, and only today have I finally awakened from it. I was trapped in this nightmare for far too long, forced to play the role of a deeply devoted lover like a walking corpse, yet the love that came from the depths of my heart was mercilessly sealed away." His tone and expression grew increasingly frenzied, his eyes filled with unwillingness, as if blaming and resenting. I seemed to see the Lin Xiaobai from my past life, before he met Wen Shuyi, his heart and eyes entirely filled with me. The difference was that back then, he was clear-headed and composed, with eyes pure and transparent. Waking from a dream leaves no trace. The past turns to dust. What should be forgotten, let it be forgotten, I said calmly. But I can't forget how we were both toyed with. Across 2 lifetimes, the one I loved was never Wen Shuyi, and I never shifted my affections to her. Yet I had no choice. Every step I took in my past life seemed preordained, and I was trapped in the game, muddling through a chaotic existence, powerless to resist, forced to perform a lifetime of devotion, to highlight her charm, to add a romantic legend to her story. That was the purpose of my existence. And you, are you the same as me? Yes, the same as you. 13 Just as he said, in my past life, I was nothing more than a supporting role, just like him. This is a world within a book. When Shuyi is the female protagonist who travels through time and turns the tables, going from being dull and foolish to astonishing the world, she possesses exceptional luck and is greatly favored. Since she arrived in this world, she has enjoyed all the glory, while I will lose everything, gradually turn dark, and become a vicious female supporting character, a stepping stone on her path to advancement. Lin Xiaobai, on the other hand, will transfer his affections to her, becoming the devoted male supporting character who loves her deeply and remains unmarried for life. All to highlight her charm, I will lose everything and turn dark as the book dictates, and he will be deeply devoted to her as the story writes. We give it our all, living out a grand dream, only to be nothing more than pitiful and pathetic supporting characters, unable to control our own fates. Perhaps it is my unwillingness that has granted me a new life. I refuse to repeat the same mistakes. Step by step, I have rewritten my destiny now. Fortune and misfortune are uncertain, and the way home is unclear. I cannot look back, I can only press forward with sheer courage. What surprised me was that he had also awakened memories of his past life. I never expected his next words to shock me even more. When Shuyi abandoned the city and fled, leading to the massacre of hundreds of innocent people in the entire city, this act has violated the harmony of heaven. That day, the winds and clouds changed color, and the restless souls found no peace. From then on, the aura and fortune surrounding her will completely dissipate. She is just an ordinary person now, no longer favored by fate. Lin Xiaobai's voice was stern, carrying a chilling coldness. Every word filled with resentment and hatred. I suddenly understood this was the real reason Lin Xiaobai had suddenly regained clarity. The halo of the female lead around when Shuyi had dissipated, and her fortune had vanished. Only then could he return to his true self, no longer influenced by her. He settled down in Blue City, but we could no longer get along the way we used to. Whenever he deliberately appeared before me, I could only pretend not to see him. Everyone says that strange celestial phenomena are a sign of the restless dead, and the news that the Princess of Qian fled the city out of cowardice and fear of death has spread across the land in a short time. When Shuyi was burdened with infamy, and the Qian king's army was also regarded as a rebel force, hunted by all, in an instant, the army's morale collapsed, and I had also guessed why. When Shuyi abandoned the people of Morcheng, it was because during this battle of Luocheng, Prince Qian was besieged from all sides, facing great danger. If my guess is correct, she is almost at Luocheng by now. She no longer has the protection of fate. From now on, she is merely an ordinary person. The Battle of Luocheng will be a fair contest. Yuan Zhao led her army personally to Luoyang. This would be the battle where she made her name and established her authority in her past life. She lost to Prince Qian by a narrow margin, but this time she would personally win it back. With multiple routes besieged, the army's morale shattered, and widespread resentment from both heaven and men, Prince Qian was ultimately defeated. Yet at the final moment, he still shielded when Shuyi, blocking arrows for her. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, the others surrendered one after another. Yuan Zhao won. The next time I saw her was in the Hanyuan Hall of the palace. Whether when Shuyi lives or dies, I leave it to you to decide, she said softly. Then let her live. Yuan Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly, his eyes filled with understanding. As you wish. After a brief rest, General Shu and General Yunhui reorganized their troops and, seizing the moment, charged straight for the border, dealing a heavy blow to the Beiyu cavalry and recapturing Morcheng. 14. The realm was at peace, and I went to an ancient mountain temple to meet an old friend. I had indeed chosen to let Wen Shuyi live, but living comes at a price. She was confined within the ancient temple on Nanshan, trapped in a self-made prison, forbidden from ever stepping foot outside. When I went to see her, the desolate ancient temple was heavily guarded outside, with only her inside. She had also lost her former radiance and vitality. On the day of your wedding, I warned you that your fortune in this life was exceptional, and not to act recklessly, yet you treated the lives of innocent townspeople like mere weeds, and in the end, you squandered all your good luck. Hearing this, she only let out a scornful laugh. Have you come to mock me? Her tone was full of hostility. I shook my head. In my past life, My desperate and relentless struggle was nothing more than a few lines in a book that wrote me off as a vicious supporting female character. While she had the favor of heaven, all my efforts were no match for the protagonist's aura. In the end, she would always win in this life. I just want to follow my heart. I used to envy you, envied your lifelong good fortune, how you effortlessly obtained what others desperately sought, how you sailed through life with brilliance, forcing everyone else to become your backdrop. But after experiencing the world, I've come to understand that no one is born to be someone else's foil. Everyone deserves their own brilliance. I said slowly, my tone calm and composed. Her eyes revealed confusion and helplessness. She had transmigrated into this book, endowed with a destined path, yet she did not know she was walking the plot laid out in the story, just like that zither, which in the book was her exclusive glory, designed solely for her. She only knew she was someone from another world who had traveled to an unfamiliar dynasty. Now, for me, this life is a fresh start, but her destiny has been rewritten, her fortune stripped away. In her memory remains only this brief existence, fleeting worldly splendor, vanished love and praise. How could she know of the smooth path and radiant light I speak of? Sometimes forgetting is a form of relief. It spares one from having a heart withered like dead wood while still young, and from having old sorrows surface again in the dead of night. A trace of bitterness in my heart, I said in a low voice, for the rest of your life, you shall stay here, reciting and copying scriptures day and night, praying that the innocent souls of Morching may soon find peace, and that you may at last cleanse yourself of your sins. The moment her words fell, fear and guilt flickered in her eyes. I turned and walked out of the ancient temple, the heavy door locking behind me with a thud. Lin Xiaobai was waiting on the path I had to take down the mountain. His gaze was uneasy, as if he had mustered all his courage before finally asking, "Shuyang, the past was a cruel twist of fate. Can you give me another chance now? In my past life, both his fate and mine were dictated by forces beyond our control, leaving us no choice, but now, we can choose for ourselves. I stand on the mountainside, where I can overlook the entire splendor of Kyoto, its boundless prosperity. I think I have already found my answer. I don't want to. The people and things I've missed are all in the past, separated by desolate years and cruel memories, too painful to look back on, and I cannot bear to. I must look forward." As I finished speaking, the expression on his face froze, tinged with an indescribable loneliness. With the late emperor's passing, Yuan Zhao ultimately ascended to the supreme throne, just as we had once promised each other. When she ascends to the pinnacle of power, that will be the day I rise to the rank of prime minister. When Shuyang became the first female chancellor of the Dayan dynasty, as well as the head of the Wen family. On the day I restored the Wen family's traditions, I sat in the seat of honor and established new rules, while my father stood below with a face full of fear and unease, as if he could not believe that I would take that position. Another year, the Qianglin banquet arrived. Yuan Zhao sat high in the seat of honor, while I took my place on the lower left side. The newly appointed scholars gathered together, recreating the grand scene of the monarch and ministers discussing state affairs as once spoken of in days past. Yuan Zhao and I exchanged a knowing smile, feeling a sense of delight. As the banquet ended, I happened to catch sight of a clear moon on the way back and couldn't help but stop to admire it. Then Lin Xiaobai arrived under the moonlight, carrying a fine jug of wine. Beneath the moonlight, he was clad in plain white robes, exuding an ethereal grace. I climbed the high tower with him, and we raised our cups to drink together. Halfway through the wine, he remarked with emotion, "Now you are the brightest moon among the noble houses of the capital, shining with a pure radiance. Others respect you, yet dare not draw near. Then you'd better keep your distance from me as well," I said in a low voice, but he only gave a soft laugh, ignoring my warning, and said wistfully, "I have grown used to guarding from afar. Even if it yields nothing in the end, so be it. Some people are ultimately just passers-by, and some things are hard to look back on." My words were resolute, leaving no room for compromise. The long wind swept by, leaving only the fragrance of wine lingering, with not a single word in response, and I gazed into the distance, seeing nothing but the vast expanse of the world. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The 90-year-old emperor passed away, and dressed in mourning attire, I served as his youngest concubine supporting the coffin. Jiyu Zhaoyang also came to pay condolences with his pregnant best friend. I bowed in return. He hurriedly stopped me. "Ah, Your Highness, the noble consort must not act this way." I returned the courtesy calmly. "Such are the formalities. The chief minister need not be alarmed." I.e., his eyes reddened. "You still blame me, you flatter me." Prime Minister, all my lingering attachments to him vanished 7 years ago. On the day he forcibly dressed me in bridal robes, shoved me into a carriage, and made me marry the 83-year-old emperor in Song Jian's stead. Every last trace dissipated. Jiyu Zhaoyan's tribute box was presented. I opened it right in front of him. Beneath the gold and silver jewelry lay a tiny pinwheel. The paper had yellowed and faded, the bamboo dried and cracked. It was the very one we played with together as children. Did His Excellency the Chief Minister put something in the wrong place? I didn't even lift an eyelid. Jiyu Zhaoyan's voice was slightly hoarse. This humble official has kept everything bestowed by her ladyship the noble consort. I threw the windmill into the brazier. A perfectly composed smile remained on my face. My deepest gratitude, Prime Minister. Jiyu Zhaoyang watched as the flames consumed the pinwheel, his eyes instantly reddening at the corners. His Adam's apple bobbed once before his expression smoothed into its usual composure. The bottom layer contains Shoes Osmanthus cakes, this year's first batch, Her Highness the noble consort's favorite flavor. In the past, my thanks. I casually tossed the box aside. This consort has long since lost her taste for sweets. Song Jian was still waiting outside the house. Jiyu Zhaoyang glanced at me before leaving reluctantly, turning back repeatedly before opening the door. He spoke hoarsely, about what happened back then. My lord, Song Jian's voice called out. Jiyu Zhaoyang swallowed all his words. The maidservant Aying spoke suspiciously. The chief minister was merely your childhood friend, yet he treats your majesty with more care than even an elder brother would. I smiled bitterly. He has no right to mention my brother. All for Song Jian. My father and brother were long ago sent to the Yellow Springs by his own hand. At the age of 15, the day before, I was still playing with pinwheels in the courtyard with Jiyu Zhaoyang. The next day, I was told that the Jiyu family's house could no longer be visited. When I rushed to the Jiyu residence, their mansion had already been burned to ruins. Yesterday's radiant youth sat atop broken walls in tattered clothes. A lifeless aura clung to him. His throat was scorched hoarse by the blistering air. I.e., the Jiyu family has been falsely accused of treason. He handed me the letter of annulment. It's not that I wish to abandon you, but this is a crime punishable by extermination of 9 generations. I clenched my teeth. Kneeling before my father and brothers, I begged them to help Jiyu Zhaoyang. Though furious, after a night had passed, his father and elder brother still rushed about the imperial court for the sake of their old family friend's son. The Jiyu family's case was overturned, and Jiyu Zhaoyang was spared from execution that day. Heavy snow fell relentlessly. Kneeling in the snow, Jiyu Zhaoyang broke his finger and let his blood spill upon the ground. In this life, I am but a pawn of the Wen family, willing to go through fire and water without hesitation. Heaven above and earth below, and the spirits of our ancestors bear witness. He wasn't lying. In just 2 years, he rose from being an orphan of the Jiyu family to the position of Chief Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. The father and brothers who once shielded Jiyu Zhaoyang in court now needed his protection instead. Jiyu Zhaoyang never boasted of his achievements. Even as a high-ranking official close to the emperor, he would still perform grand salutes when encountering his father and brothers who held positions 2 or 3 ranks below him. At home, he continued to behave as their son and younger brother. To me, he remained that radiant young man. I'll always remember that Shoes Osmanthus cakes were my favorite flavor. Our first rift came because of my best friend, Miss Song Jian, the eldest daughter of the Song family. The Song family was brought down by political rivals. Song Jian became homeless. The day I brought her home, Jiyu Zhaoyang had his first argument with me. Don't you know that among those who falsely accused the Jiyu family of treason back then, her Song family shouted the loudest? I explained over and over that iron wasn't involved in any of that. She never knew what her family had done. Yet even so, Jiyu Zhaoyang remained upset for half a month, until I blushed and planted a kiss on his cheek. Only then did he reluctantly concede, promising he wouldn't target Song Jian anymore. Yang was also quite tactful. She did her best to avoid every possible encounter with Jiyu Zhaoyang at family gatherings. She would stick to me like glue. Jiyu Zhaoyang increasingly worked overtime at the cabinet office. He vowed to reach the highest position and marry me gloriously. My heart ached for him, a young mistress who'd never lifted a finger, now learning to cook soups with her own hands. Late at night, I'd prepare steaming porridge and personally deliver it to the cabinet office to check on him. That's when I saw him pressing Song Jian against the wall, kissing her with unrestrained passion. The food box fell to the ground. Hot porridge splashed onto the back of my hand. It scalded so badly that blisters formed for the first time in my life. I struck Jiyu Zhaoyang. She picked up the inkstone again and hurled it at my best friend. Jiyu Zhaoyang shielded Song Jian with his shoulder, taking the heavy blow for her. He ordered his subordinates to protect Song Jian as she left, forcing me onto a chair. He wouldn't let me chase after them, until my voice grew hoarse and I exhausted myself from struggling. He finally released me. He sighed, rubbing his temples wearily. I only did this because of you. What? With reddened eyes, I stared at him. You were the one who said Iron resembles how I used to be, and that if I could help her, I must do so. She's being targeted by enemies of the Song family. With the Song family's decline, all the grudges her family members incurred are now being settled through her. Do you really think the Wen family can protect her? If I hadn't brought her to the cabinet, you'd have been collecting her corpse long ago. I never expected their affairs could be blamed on me. He gently lifted my chin. A tender kiss landed on my forehead. Yang, improvising on the spot is perfectly normal. Someone was just trying to kill Yang. I kissed her deliberately to save her life. Be good. I've told you, you're the only wife I'll ever have in this lifetime. His lips, which had just kissed Song Jian, landed on my forehead. I pushed him away violently. I rushed home and collapsed weeping before my father and brother, but my ever-indulgent family merely wiped away my tears and sighed. The political arena changes in the blink of an eye. Performing on the spot, that's not impossible. I couldn't believe it. My elder brother frowned. Now our entire family must rely on the chief minister. Just trust him. Everyone tells me that matters of officialdom cannot be judged by appearances alone. Even if kissed, it was merely a matter of expediency. Song Jian even sought me out and knelt before me with a loud thud. Shuyi, when the chief grand secretary entangled with me that day, it was truly only to help me evade my enemies. You're my savior. If I were to meddle with your betrothed, my parents in the afterlife would never forgive me. If you're angry, I'll throw myself down the well right now. I swear I'll never disturb you and the chief grand secretary again. With that, he truly leaped into the well. Fortunately, the servants managed to grab him, yet his forehead was still gashed. Blood streamed down. We grew up together. You know me, I'm not that kind of woman. Blood mingled with tears. Tears fell from my eyes. Go. I turned my back. You've saved up enough during this time. There's no need to stay with the Wen family anymore. Though reluctant to part, she still agreed in the end. On the day Song Jian left, Jiyu Zhaoyang accompanied me to see her off. He stood beside me with his usual expression. He wiped away my tears when I cried, showing not a trace of reluctance toward Song Jian. Yet less than a month after Song Jian left, the Wen family was falsely accused of treason. Jiyu Zhaoyang had long since rebuilt the Jiyu family estate. On the day such grave charges were levied, I rushed madly to the Jiyu residence just as I had at 15, only this time, it was I who stood there in tattered rags. Yang, someone must have framed the Wen family. You're His Majesty's most trusted confidant. I beg you to plead for the Wen family. I'm begging you. Her forehead struck the ground, yet it wasn't Jiyu Zhaoyang who pushed open the door. Shuyi, Song Jian's rosy face, appeared before me, meeting my astonished gaze. Her eyes darted away. Only then did I realize why Jiyu Zhaoyang hadn't shown any reluctance that day. It was because Song Jian had been taken by him to the Jiyu residence. The chief minister is currently in conference with the head eunuch and has no time to see you. Guards, take Miss Wen away. Song Jian, Both my arms were forcibly seized, my screams dissipated into the wind. Song Jian pressed her lips together and ultimately closed the door that could have led to her father and brother's survival. I begged everyone I could, my shoes fell off from running, leaving both feet blooded, yet all those former friends of my father and brother, even those who owed favors to the Wen family, refused to see me. The next day, Jiyu Zhaoyang sought me out on his own. I grabbed his neck like a madwoman. It was you. You're the one who falsely accused us of treason. You, Jiyu Zhaoyang frowned. What are you talking about? They told me. I begged them all night. They told me. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Yes, who else would dare touch the Wen family? Who else could touch the Wen family besides you, Jiyu Zhaoyang? With the Wen family gone, the Song family immediately took their place. Was this all for Song Jian? My hands clutching him were easily pushed away. I fell to the ground. He looked down at me from above. You were the one who said she's just like how I used to be. At first I couldn't accept it, but later, I realized you were right. I stared at him in disbelief. The day Iron was taken to the Wen family, I seemed to see myself again, that lost and helpless version of me standing amidst the ruins of the Jiyu family. I did despise her at first, but later, I couldn't bear to see her wronged. Watching her suffer was like seeing my own past weakness, that version of me who couldn't protect anyone. My voice trembled slightly. Jiyu Zhaoyang, i.e., I want the Song family to be restored, just like the Jiyu family rising from adversity. His hand gently brushed across my cheek. The Wen family is the greatest obstacle on the Song family's path forward. Do you understand? Slap. A resounding slap landed hard across his face. Jiyu Zhaoyan's cheek tilted slightly to one side. He didn't get angry. Instead, he rubbed my hand that I'd hit him with. You didn't abandon me when the Jiyu family fell from grace. Now, I won't abandon you either. Rest assured, the Wen family's rebellion won't affect you. Jiyu Zhaoyang, you might as well just let me die. He turned a deaf ear to my breakdown. He stood up and left without looking back. My father and brother never returned after being taken away. My requests for prison visits were all denied. I frantically sought help everywhere, yet no one extended a helping hand to me. The only person I could rely on, Jiyu Zhaoyang, had his heart and eyes full of Song Jian. I stopped their carriage in the street, shouting curses at him for his ingratitude, spread far and wide how he repaid Song Jian's kindness with ingratitude, dumped all the vegetable vendors' produce onto their carriage, yet didn't harm a single hair on their heads. Everyone looked at me with contempt. The chief minister was right. This woman has truly gone mad. How pitiable the chief minister is. Though his childhood sweetheart's family committed treason and he could have walked away, he didn't abandon her because of their past affection. Yet this childhood friend shows no gratitude at all. When her father and brothers committed such treasonous acts, she too deserved death. Were it not for the chief minister, how could she be here ranting like a madwoman? Miss Song is also to be pitied, having such a close friend foisted upon her. Jiyu Zhaoyang looked at me coldly. His eyes were filled with understanding. Suddenly, I realized, Jiyu Zhaoyang was no longer the Jiyu Zhaoyang I knew. He maneuvers effortlessly through official circles, his cunning far surpassing ordinary depths. He's guiding me toward madness. The news of my insanity had already been spread by him long before I truly lost my mind. Such was his confidence. It will surely drive me mad. Since the eldest daughter of the Wen family has gone insane, my marriage contract with the Wen family is hereby annulled, but I still won't abandon Miss Wen. Amidst the chorus of the chief counselor is truly benevolent. I finally understood. He orchestrated all of this precisely for this moment, all to ceremoniously welcome Song Jian into the Jiyu residence, without needing to honor the betrothal by marrying his childhood sweetheart, me, first. After I went mad, he had every justification to confine me within the manor. The only thing that keeps me going each day is listening to the servants discuss how my father and brother's trial is progressing, until the news came that my father and brother had been executed ahead of schedule that day. The rain poured down in torrents. Weeping, I rushed into Jiyu Zhaoyan's courtyard and knelt before him. I won't stand between you and Iron anymore. Just let me see my father and brother. I'm begging you just this once. I'll never ask for anything else. He looked down at me from his superior position. His black python robe clung tightly to his body, rainwater streamed down his face like tears, yet his eyes remained utterly cold. Jiyu Zhaoyang, I beg you, guards. I heard his icy voice. Dress miss when in bridal attire and escort her to the palace. Jiyu Zhaoyang. I looked at him blankly, his Adam's apple bobbed. Sorry, iron has caught the old emperor's eye, since you resemble her, help her. Jiyu Zhaoyang. My eyes widened in terror. I'm sorry, Iron has struggled so hard to reach this point, we can't let her be ruined by that old emperor. I was dragged away forcibly for the first time in my life. I wept and pleaded so humbly. Jiyu Zhaoyang, I won't marry. Let me see my father and brother, I beg you, I must see my father and brother. The servants couldn't pull me away. He gritted his teeth, he stepped forward and grabbed my wrist, twisting it until a searing pain shot through my arm. The wedding dress was draped over me by his own hands, and I was pushed into the carriage. His eyes were terrifyingly red. Be good, I'll bury your father and brother's bodies with the highest honors. I shook my head tearfully. No, I won't marry. I beg you, Prime Minister, I beg you. Depart, he barked the command. The carriage forcibly delivered me to that 83-year-old emperor. A cold wind swept through the morning hall. I shuddered. Only then did I notice Ying was already choking back sobs. Fortunately, with the old emperor's passing, she could cry as much as she wanted. The morning hall was nearly empty now. I've sent away all who needed to be sent away. I can go back now. Stepping out of the morning hall, a familiar figure stood at the entrance. The pallbearer must also be buried alive during the interment. Jiyu Zhaoyan's voice was hoarse. Is it true? I replied expressionlessly. Yes, I can make you appear dead. I sidestepped past. His outstretched hand brushed past him. Are ye? He turned around, his voice filled with urgency. Are you really planning to follow the late emperor in death? I continued walking forward. Are ye? I was wrong. I was wrong about what happened back then. Don't die for him. The Grand Secretary jokes. The carriage stopped before me. A large, bony hand extended outward. I placed my hand in that person's palm, turning back. I am no longer the late emperor's wife. The wind lifted the sedan curtain. A man's face burst into Jiyu Zhaoyan's view. He heard his own voice, nearly breaking. Second prince, his political rival, i.e., Jiyu Zhaoyang had never been so urgent before. He wanted to grasp my hand, but with a slight tug from the person in the carriage, I was pulled inside. Jiyu Zhaoyan's outstretched hand barely brushed against the hem of my robe. Soon, even the carriage vanished from his sight. Are ye? He lifted his foot to chase after her but was hastily stopped by his arriving subordinates. Chief Counselor, the weather is cold and the rain heavy. Please be careful not to catch a chill. Don't stop me. Get away. Get lost. He shoved aside the umbrella his subordinate offered, frantically trying to chase after the carriage while his men desperately held him back. Grand Counselor, that's the second prince's palanquin. Charging at a royal carriage is a grave offense. No, Ae is still on there. His eyes were bloodshot, yet his subordinates held him back desperately. In his daze, he seemed to recall that rainy night 7 years ago. The girl had fought desperately to get out of the carriage. He merely stood there stubbornly blocking their way, using the corpses of her father and brother as leverage. That day when the carriage departed from the Jiyu residence, for a fleeting moment he wanted to chase after it, but after taking that first step, hesitation ultimately prevailed. He slowly drew his foot back, but now, when he truly wanted to stop the carriage, why couldn't he hold it back anymore? With a thud, he fell to his knees, the shocked cries of his subordinates sounding distorted in his ears. Only the gradually receding carriage remained as his entire world. When Jiyu Zhaoyang returned to the Jiyu residence, Song Jian had already gone to bed. He went straight to the detached courtyard, the place where I was once imprisoned. Pushing open the door, everything inside remained unchanged. Someone comes regularly to clean the swing at the courtyard entrance. He used to push Shui on it, listening to her carefree laughter. The golden foil pinwheel stuck beside the small table. Shui used to run around the whole courtyard holding it, giggling as she watched it spin. If it breaks, I'll just make her a new one. Pushing open the door to the inner room, he saw Shui sitting blushing on the cushioned chair by the window, reading aloud. My sweetheart came on hobbyhorse, circling the well. playing with green plums, then suddenly noticing him, she shyly hid her face behind the book, only to peek at him with those bright eyes moments later. Those moments that would later bring a smile to your face were once thought to be the ordinary days of a lifetime, until the Gu family was reduced to ashes overnight, and he could never return to the past. Even in the Wen family, Shuyi treated him just as before, yet that heart had already changed. He craved power and fame, seeking revenge and settling grudges. Those carefree days with Shuyi in the past were ultimately just childhood naivety. No matter how composed he appeared on the surface, he always harbored a simmering resentment in his heart, the frustration of being unable to protect one's family. He must climb to the highest peak, to hold power over life and death, rather than having his own fate controlled by others. He kills when killing is needed, he robs when robbing is required. Even if it's the Wen family, even if this is the book's essence, he declared, better I betray the world than let the world betray me, manipulating everyone like puppets in his hands. How could he have known then that some people must never be wounded, some people must never be used? Once I act, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. He picked up the book that Shuyi had once read, that year, by the latticed window where she read love poems. She tucked a leaf between its pages. The wind blew past. The door opened. He jerked his head up. Shuyi, only bitter wind and cold rain entered. The leaf was also blown to the ground. He let out a bitter laugh. Those childhood days were long gone. During those 7 years by the old emperor's side, he never liked me. First, I was driven to the brink of madness, and he despised me for it. Second, there were too many young women around him who knew how to please him. To him, I was utterly dispensable. Fortunately, after my mental state improved, I did become more composed and reliable in my work. He had grown old and no longer harbored much interest in romantic affairs, so he began treating me as an assistant, sorting memorials, serving tea, reading aloud for him. Thus, I came to know his second son, the son he disliked the most, even fresh from triumph, just for accidentally knocking off the crown prince's jade pendant. Xie Chang'an could be made to kneel all night in the rain. The emperor asked if I thought this was cruel. I lowered my eyes demurely. A father disciplining his son is only right and proper. After stepping outside, he tilted the umbrella slightly toward Xie Chang'an. You need someone who has influence before His Majesty. He paused. I beg her ladyship, the noble consort, for her grace, Xie Chang'an once asked me. He was the least favored among the imperial princes. By choosing him, aren't you afraid that one day another prince might ascend the throne and purge you along with him? I smiled. The one I choose shall be emperor, as expected. The crown prince was discovered plotting rebellion before the late emperor's passing. Second in line became Xie Chang'an. Leaning back in the soft chair, I closed my eyes to contemplate the next steps. A thin blanket lay draped over me. I opened my eyes. Xie Chang'an's cool gaze was absently fixed upon me. The moment our eyes met, he immediately averted his. Before the late emperor was buried, Xie Chang'an could only assume imperial authority but not ascend the throne. Once the funeral rites were completed, everything would return to normal. Yet on the final day of the mourning vigil, someone forced their way into the funeral hall, cursing loudly before everyone present. I stared in astonishment at Song Jian's heavily pregnant belly, frowning. Madame Gu, shouting before the late emperor's spirit tablet, do you think your life and your unborn child's are too long? She let out a cold laugh. Ha, this matter can only be spoken of before the late emperor's spirit tablet. Did the late emperor know that as his woman, you were entangled with his son? What? All the officials were still present. Hearing this, they abruptly raised their heads. The imperial concubine and the late emperor's son, what's going on here? The mourning hall immediately erupted into chaos. I frowned as I looked at Song Jian. She looked somewhat haggard. Her condition was almost identical to mine when I learned my father and brother had been falsely accused of treason days earlier. My lords, the noble consort has been involved with His Highness Prince Su, the second Prince Xie Chang'an, who is about to ascend the throne. How dare such a vile temptress of imperial heirs presume to guard the late emperor's spirit? How dare you? Ah Ying frowned. How dare you slander the noble consort, drag her out and beat her to death? Ha! If I'm truly lying, when Shuyi with the late emperor's burial tomorrow, would you dare to be buried alongside him? everyone turned to look at me after all. It's already the rule that those who carry the coffin must be buried alive with the deceased. If you dare let everyone watch as you lie down in the coffin to accompany the late emperor in death, then whether I kill you or cut you to pieces is entirely up to me, noble consort. You will be buried alive tomorrow, won't you? Some officials were already beginning to suspect. Yes, Your Highness Consort Yang, this concerns the dignity of the royal family. We must hold a public burial ceremony tomorrow. I clenched my fists. The original arrangement was for only the funeral procession and sacrificial attendants to enter the imperial mausoleum Xie Chang'an, and I had long since made all the necessary preparations. The team was replaced with his own people. If this were made public, the truth would naturally come out. Yet the civil and military officials present had already been incited. Song Jian laughed heartily. When Shuyi, this is the will of the people. Don't tell me you lack even the courage to be seen entering your own coffin. Enough. A familiar figure burst into the funeral hall. Slap. A resounding blow landed on Song Jian's face. Jiyu Zhaoyang clenched his teeth. Who gave you permission to spout nonsense before the late Emperor's spirit? Yang. She was caught off guard when her mute acupoint was sealed. Jiyu Zhaoyang bowed to the assembled civil and military officials. My apologies, honorable ministers. My foolish wife suffered a shock recently and has gone mad. She accidentally escaped and disturbed your gathering. I sincerely apologize. Song Jian's eyes widened in disbelief. Jiyu Zhaoyang forcibly picked her up, and I saw Song Jian struggling frantically. That very night, Jiyu Zhaoyan's men visited the residences of all the officials. By the next day, no one dared mention holding a public funeral anymore. By the time the funeral procession ended, darkness had completely fallen. All the officials had gone home. Only Jiyu Zhaoyang remained behind. I frowned. Though I'd already changed my attire completely, no one would recognize me now. Yet Jiyu Zhaoyang still spotted me instantly. Just as we were about to pass each other, he called out to me, "Forgive me, I didn't stop." His voice trembled slightly. "I'm doing everything I can to make amends. Please, give me a chance." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course I understood what he meant. I knew perfectly well why Song Jian had gone mad and caused a scene at the late emperor's memorial hall. Jiyu Zhaoyang was a viper. The way he treated me back then wouldn't change just because he'd switched targets. Song Jian's life these years probably hasn't been as glamorous as it appeared on the surface. Jiyu Zhaoyang excels at driving people mad without showing any emotion. How could I not see through Song Jian's reason for causing a scene at the memorial hall? Don't worry, Song Jian's little tantrum won't affect you in the slightest. I sighed. I understood what he meant. He had already settled this matter for me. What his men did when they entered those lords' homes that night, my informants had certainly told me all about it. Unnecessary. He froze for a moment upon hearing my words. My people will handle these matters. There's no need for Your Excellency the Chief Grand Secretary to intervene. He let out a bitter laugh. Indeed, I've been working with Xie Chang'an for years. How could this matter possibly be unresolved? But I can't let you bear the infamy, especially when that person is my wife in name. I closed my eyes. Stop pestering me, Prime Minister. If you truly repent sincerely, pretending not to know me would be the most helpful thing you could do for me. His eyes turned red. Are you giving me no chance at all? My retreating figure gave him the answer. In that case, I heard danger in his voice. Then I must apologize. Something pricked my neck. I turned my head in surprise. A needle flew out from his sleeve. I clutched my neck, my legs beginning to give way. Jiyu Zhaoyang. He steadied me firmly in his embrace. Anyway, you're already lying in the late emperor's coffin, buried alongside him now, aren't you? I opened my mouth, wanting to cry for help, but this was the imperial mausoleum. There was hardly anyone around. Xie Chang'an was waiting for me far away, completely unaware of what was happening here. Xie Chang. Before I could finish speaking, I completely passed out. When I woke up again, I felt momentarily disoriented. Sunshine, warm breeze, windmills, Osmanthus cakes, poetry books. Did I travel back to my childhood? But when Jiyu Zhaoyan's face appeared by the bedside, I understood that wasn't the case because my hands were tied to the headboard. You're awake. Do you like it here? He gently stroked my cheek. It's all recreated exactly as we remembered from childhood. Let me go. I avoided his hand. He laughed. No, right now is when you resist me the most. If I let you go, you'll definitely find a way to leave me. Even, his Adam's apple bobbed, I would rather die than yield. I clenched my teeth. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against mine. His voice tender as if we'd returned to those days before the Jiyu family was falsely accused. Don't be afraid. Shuyi, all people and matters that could interfere with us have been dealt with by your husband. Song Jian won't disturb us anymore. She's already gone. My body stiffened. I knew Jiyu Zhaoyan's methods all too well. I dare not even imagine what Song Jian looked like before her death. No one would suspect Jiyu Zhaoyang had anything to do with Song Jian's death, just as no one initially believed my madness had any connection to him. A bitter smile surfaced on my lips. You're disgusting. He froze momentarily, then broke into laughter. It doesn't matter, Shuyi. You're allowed to hate me. A lifetime is long. There'll be plenty of time to mend what's been broken. I promise. We'll be the happiest couple. I turned my head away, avoiding his hand, thinking Xie Chang'an would come. He laughed. Today is the coronation ceremony. My breath caught. He pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. The former crown prince has been released now. I opened my eyes wide. That's right, it was your husband who did it. He laughed. In order to inherit the throne as soon as possible and prevent his elder brother the crown prince from getting ahead, he wouldn't come looking for you, someone everyone believes is already dead. You, Shuyi, don't be foolish. He leaned down. That is the imperial throne, the most supreme power in this world. No man can resist that feeling. His breath lingered by my ear. But I'd resist it for you. Jiyu Zhaoyang is no longer the chief minister. He's already vanished without a trace. His eyes brimmed with tenderness on the verge of overflowing. From now on, there will be no Wen Shuyi nor Jiyu Zhaoyang in this world. There will only be an ordinary fishing couple in a borderland town. Tears fell unwittingly from the corners of her eyes. He gently kissed it away for me. Say you love me. Get lost. I clenched my teeth. He forcibly gripped my chin. It doesn't matter. I can wait a lifetime for you to say you love me. With that, he leaned down to kiss me, but suddenly, the clashing of weapons sounded outside the door. The cries of guards falling to the ground rose one after another. The warmth in Jiyu Zhaoyan's eyes instantly turned icy. The door was kicked open with a crash. Xie Chang'an, I cried out hoarsely. Xie Chang'an gripped his long sword, silencing the last guard blocking the doorway with a single lethal stroke. His black robes reeked of blood as he fixed his demonic gaze upon us. Jiyu Zhaoyang, Xie Chang'an was a veteran of countless battles. His martial arts surpassed Jiyu Zhaoyan's. Jiyu Zhaoyang soon spat out a mouthful of blood, dropping to one knee on the ground. Shuyi, Xie Chang'an seized the opportunity to bypass him and quickly untied me. No, there's something in his sleeve. I had just spoken when his neck suddenly went numb. Xie Chang'an, I threw away the rope and swiftly pulled out the silver needle embedded in his neck. But it was already too late. Jiyu Zhaoyang rose to his feet, blood staining the corner of his lips. He threw the hidden mechanism from his sleeve onto the table, daring to come on. Such an important day as the new emperor's ascension, so sentimental. Xie Chang'an, he sneered coldly at Xie Chang'an, serves you right for losing to your crown prince brother. Cough. Xie Chang'an spat out a mouthful of blood, clutching his neck. He collapsed limply. I hurriedly caught him in my arms. Jiyu Zhaoyang pointed his long sword at Xie Chang'an. Shuyi, come with me. You wouldn't want his head to roll, would you? Books, meaning. Xie Chang'an could barely speak. Go. Jiyu Zhaoyang frowned. With displeasure, I clenched my teeth. Go, Shuyi, go. I burst into laughter. Then let's go together. With those words, I threw myself onto the long sword. Blood splattered everywhere. Shuyi, the long sword abruptly withdrew. Jiyu Zhaoyang stared at me in disbelief. Have you lost your mind? Jiyu Zhaoyang reacted swiftly. At the moment my neck was about to touch the sword, I swiftly pulled back, yet it still grazed my forehead. Do it, Jiyu Zhaoyang. I clenched my teeth and glared at him. Jiyu Zhaoyan's sword trembled slightly. Do it, just like you did to my father and brother, just like you did to me. Do it. I grabbed his hand directly and pulled it toward myself. Enough. The long sword fell to the ground. His eyes were red. his breath trembling slowly. He looked toward us. A brocade pouch was thrown to the ground. Jiyu Zhaoyang stared at us. Antidote. With that, he turned and left. Jiyu Zhaoyang wasn't lying, it was truly the antidote. After taking it, Xie Chang'an indeed recovered, yet the succession ceremony was ultimately missed. The crown prince won't let us go, so we could only think of escape routes for ourselves. Faking death might be a good choice. Yet before we could leave, the palace guards arrived swiftly at this border town. All civil and military officials knelt in unison, pleading with Xie Chang'an to ascend the throne immediately. Where is the crown prince? Xie Chang'an frowned. The crown prince was assassinated and succumbed to his wounds. Who did this? I froze. The assassin has not yet been apprehended. Prince Su, the nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. Your Highness must ascend the throne immediately. Xie Chang'an took my hand and led me onto the carriage returning to the palace. Halfway there, I lifted the curtain to look outside. A figure clad entirely in black robes passed by our carriage. He didn't raise his head, his face obscured from view, yet the familiar feeling made me steal a few extra glances. His long sword was drenched in blood. It was the very blade Jiyu Zhaoyang had been carrying. For some reason, I actually had a fleeting suspicion that Crown Prince Jiyu Zhaoyang might be the killer, but I quickly shook my head. Impossible. The carriage disappeared into the distance. The man in black halted. He turned his head, watching the carriage grow more distant. He smiled, smiling until tears began to fall. 7 years ago, he should have chased that carriage back. The cabin door swung open. The blood had long dried. Guard corpses lay strewn haphazardly. He stood at the door, blood still beaded on his face. Shuyi, our little cottage, it's been defiled. With those words, he collapsed to the ground. During the assassination attempt on the crown prince, hadn't he also suffered severe injuries? Yet he still mustered his last ounce of strength to return here. This place resembled most closely their childhood home. To die here like dying in childhood. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.